Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Barbershop Love Stories, where we talk about love, dating, and relationship from a man's point of view. My name is Lena West, and I am the founder and creator, and today my very special guest is Thomas Regular. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. I am so glad you're here. Mr. Regular was my barber instructor in barbering school, and we had a ton of fun, and I'm so excited that he's here today to share his thoughts and feelings on love and just, his ideas on all those things related. So let's just start with tell me a little bit about what you thought about marriage growing up.
My vision on marriage was always there. I knew I wanted to be married at some point. I didn't know what age. Like, I was naive at one point. I said maybe by 25 I wanted to be married with kids, house, all that good stuff. But reality is reality. You can't put a time frame on certain things.
Sure.
But growing up, I always idolized marriage because my parents are still together, which is uncommon nowadays, especially in this area. Being in Atlanta, I was born and raised. But yeah, my parents have been together for 50 plus years. So marriage was not too far from my vision.
Do you feel like you wanted to have their marriage specifically, or did you take some of the things from their marriage and kind of craft in your mind, okay, well, I want a little bit of theirs and a little bit of this or that?
So again, like when I was younger and naive, I wanted my marriage to resemble my parents, but slowly as I got older, I realized that time and people change. So the world changed from the time that they met each other and they were dating and courting when they actually got married. Because, not putting that business in the street, but my mom wasn't originally with my dad when they got married. So my brother has a different father, but we have the same mother. But she ended up marrying my dad. So that alone, I couldn't have that same dynamic that they had. So it was going to be different anyways. And then again, with the way things changes, inflation and stuff like that, I couldn't meet the expectations of that marriage because the times were different.
Okay. And then how did that impact you growing up, do you feel?
Growing up, it was great. Growing up, it was great. Being in the household, I always considered myself to be different from everybody else that I was around or people that were my age. Mm-hmm. Most of the people that I was friends with growing up, they didn't come from a two-parent household, or if they did, they weren't married. They weren't traditionally married or whatever. But growing up in that dynamic, it gave us strong principles. So my brother got out of high school, he got married, had kids. That was always my goal. And it kind of hindered me in a way too, because I wanted to be like my dad, and so much that my mom could work if she wanted to, but she didn't really have to. Like, my dad took care of the household, took care of everything. Mm-hmm. And she was basically a stay-at-home mom. But like I said, nowadays it's not realistic to have like a one-income household unless you sell drugs or something. But it's like I had to change my ideology on a lot of things, like especially being in the field that we're in, being a barber. My money at the time, I wasn't managing it right, and it was fluctuating, especially around the time I wanted to get married.
Okay. Did that have an effect on who you dated or how you dated? Because did you have like the vision, like, okay, if I date this person, it's intentionally, and I may marry this person? Or were you just kind of like,
after like going through several different like non-serious relationships, like that taught me what to look for and what I wanted. Mm-hmm. That actually showed me what I was looking for in a wife or a long-term partner. So going through all the high school relationships, going through somebody who I thought could have been my wife and that not working out because that person's vision didn't align with mine, that let me know what to look for and what to identify and what questions to ask. Okay. So it did help in a way.
And then what age did that relationship end?
The first one, I want to say 22.
22, okay. I have a 22-year-old now, and I'm like, that's a newborn babe.
I was trying to put a time frame to it because the relationship started my junior year in high school.
Okay, so like 16, 17?
Yeah, I was like 16.
Okay.
And that carried over to like my sophomore year in college.
Mm-hmm. So. Okay, and then you've been married for how long?
Currently I've been married for 6 years.
Okay. So just a little bit past newlywed stage.
Yeah, for sure.
So
almost didn't make it. That 5-year thing is true.
Ooh. Well, we're going to circle back to that for sure. So let's talk about first of all, what age did you get married?
28.
28, okay. And then where were you at, like financially, spiritually, physically?
Spiritually, I've always been pretty sound spiritually and foundation, but financially I wasn't where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. I can realistically say that. And what was the other one?
Physically.
Like physically. Physically, I felt like I was physically ready to be there, but the burden for me was the financial part of it. Because not only was I not in a situation where I could, fend for myself, I had that goal in my mind to be like my dad. Like I wanted to be able to have enough for me and everybody else that I considered to be a part of my family. And financially, I wasn't there yet. So the complication that came along with that is, I met my wife. I won't say her name because she might not want me to do that. But I met my wife through a mutual friend.
Oh, okay.
And from day one, like just the conversation that we had and the mindset that she had, the career path that she was in, she was an educator. So we kind of aligned that way because I wanted to be a teacher. I went to school for music education at the Great Florida A&M University.
Okay.
But so I went to school for education. So those things aligned. Like I always told myself I wanted to marry somebody who was just not physically attractive, but they were intelligent as well. And she graduated valedictorian from Fort Valley. All that good stuff. So all of that stuff was lining up. It's just like I want to be in a situation where I could take care of this person. And financially, I wasn't there because I still was battling from moving back from Tallahassee, Florida to Atlanta, trying to establish a clientele in the barbershop. And like I said, that money was inconsistent. I didn't have enough time to spend with her. I didn't have enough energy to give to her because I was doing barbershop during the day and I was doing overnight at McDonald's as a manager. It's crazy. But it was like the time and it wasn't there. And the way I had to go about getting the money, it just didn't align with being like a husband to me.
Did you express that to her, or were you just trying to hurry up and get it? Oh, okay.
For sure.
And how was that received?
It wasn't received the way I thought it would be received. So I said it and I put it out there in a way to where I thought it would give clarity and give understanding to eventually I see you as my wife. But now it's not the time. You know what I'm saying? And along with that, I'm not gonna say I was pressured, but I can say it was escalated a little bit because of what she wanted. You know what I'm saying? So me leading with that, saying like, yeah, I view you as my wife. Oh, so what's the problem? Why are we waiting? So to me, in her brain, it was like, well, you're just stringing me along. You're just telling me this to keep me at bay. Which for me, it wasn't the case. Like I know what I want, and I know how I see myself as a husband.
And she was about how old? Because if you were 20,
she's a year younger than me.
Okay. So I just think of myself in my 20s, and I would probably think the same thing. I'd be like, he's just trying to string me along because like I'm a ride or die, so we can just do it together. We can be poor together and then we'll rise like the eagle or something like that.
I mean, but realistically, like being like the relationship before that one, well, I'll say the one before that. So 2 relationships before that, we were together for like 3 years. And there was like a year in between, and I had a relationship for a year that was miserable. And then I went into this relationship trying not to experience all those things that I did in the first 2, right? So from my end, it was like, I'm ready to make that commitment, but I know myself. Like I'm honest with myself. I've always been, pretty efficient at doing things and in a timely manner. Like I see things forward, not current. And trying to explain that to certain people, and she was coming out of an 8-year relationship where she had only been with one person, and all she knew was that. So the expectation was a little bit different. Like I said, I grew up with it. My parents were married since I came into the world, so it's like I knew what it should have looked like. And yeah, I can say that I was mature for my age. So we were maybe 24, 25-ish, and I'm trying to explain to her my vision. Because at the time when we met, we were still staying respectfully with our parents because I had just moved back, hadn't gotten an apartment. And I'm telling her the steps that I'm trying to take to get to the point that she was trying to get to. It was just like she, as with, in my opinion, with most women, she was leaning heavily on love will get us through.
Yeah.
And I'm leaning heavily on reality is going to smack us in the face. And like, I'm trying to take care of that stuff first. And it's just like, it got to a point to where I didn't want her to be unhappy and be thinking about stuff, and so it was not pressure. It was just I'd rather not deal with this problem, so let me just go ahead and do it.
That was one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because I find it so fascinating that we can see things so totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So age and knowing a lot of men in a platonic manner and having them just share with me, I realized that when a man commits and is ready to get married, it's not all this fluffy, rosy stuff. It's calculated, and there's like a lot of planning internally that goes on with that. Whereas like on our end, we're just like, oh my gosh, someone chose me. Someone, you know, is fully in with me, and it's like a happy, joyous thing. And I think it's just a little bit different, you know, coming from a man. So that process of commitment, what were some of the things? Well, first of all, was there anything she could have done or not done to get your commitment?
No, I mean, she done, like I said, it was first date, first conversation. It was like, okay, I can see this. And then also with that, like I said, after going through and experiencing certain relationships, understanding that people change. Like the person or the Lena that I met the first day of barber class was not the Lena that I knew once you graduated. In just a year and a half, like, you changed. So when you think about it in the term of a relationship, like, and like I say, first date, you're meeting somebody's representative.
That's
like,
true.
You gotta get to the point where you peel back the layers and you understand that person, and you have to be able to accept that person for who they are. Like when we met, I felt like I was pretty established, right? I felt like I had experienced a lot, and just in some of the stories that she was telling me, I knew she had a lot of growing to do. At that point, I had accepted that I'm going to weather this storm. I'm going to grow with her. Meaning, she was staying with her mom, didn't have a license, didn't drive, was taking Ubers back and forth, and like wasn't a very independent type person, right? So that's the person that I met, and that's the person that I knew. In order for this to work, we have to be two independent entities that come together. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So where a lot of people, I feel like in relationships go wrong is they have the wrong mindset. Like most women, this is just my opinion, don't crucify me. Most women come in wanting a guy to be responsible for their happiness, their fun, you know, their way of living. And in my interpretation of it is like, I can't physically like make you happy 24/7.
No.
Because you have a job, I have a job. You have places to be, you have responsibilities as well as I do. You had friends before we got together, I had friends before we got together. And to keep these people happy, like I can't be responsible for you 100% of the time. Like you have to have an outlet. Because there's gonna be some points, there's gonna be some times where we are not agreeing at all. And we need a safe space to go to. I had that at that age. I didn't think she had that at that age. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, back what I'm saying is like growing with somebody, like having that understanding, and then being able to accept what you don't want to hear, right?
From her or
from any entity, right? So
Okay.
say most of the disputes start from a misunderstanding, and her thing is she was like, well, we got to get a mediator. We got to put somebody that's not biased in the middle. Everybody has that system. Everybody on my side of the family are brutally honest. From my mom, dad, brother, aunts, uncles, they're gonna shoot it straight. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If you right, you right. And it's like she can't see past that because she feels like because they're my family, they're gonna lean one way or the other, which is not the case. On her case, she wants to go to a therapist, or she wants to put somebody in the middle, somebody that's neutral. But the problem for me with that is, in the situation that we're in, those people cost money. And the situation that we're in, which a lot of people say if money doesn't matter, finances, it is a big part of it. Because if you're stressed out every other month trying to figure out how you're going to do this, that, and that, and third, and then you're talking about paying extra money to a therapist just to mediate our problems, that doesn't align with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, once you enter into the therapy space, because we did do that, you have to be willing to accept what comes from it. Now you got this person in the middle opening up and looking at everything, and you're not able to accept the harsh reality of it. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I went there.
No, it does. I can even say I still am. Kind of. After your kids are 18, are you still a single parent? Oh, okay.
I mean, you're a parent until they...
Well, I was a single parent for many, many years, and a lot of those years, it was like was poor. I mean, plain and simple. And I don't feel like I parented to the maximum because of the financial problems. And I think back and I'm like, man, you know, if things were different, I feel like my kids would have been given so much more if the finances had been right. I would have had more to share and more to like give them, because I would be working from an overflow.
And I'm gonna say this before I forget, because you just hit on a valid point, right? So in that stage when we first got together, I was still working 2 jobs. I still was grinding to have that financial stability. In between that, my firstborn child, Talia, was born, and she was looking at it from, you need to spend more time with your child. I was looking at it from, I need to make the money to provide for this child. Also trying to be an entrepreneur and have my own things to where I can control my schedule, to where she gets 8, 9, 10 and gets in cheerleading, gymnastics, or whatever. I can call and say, yeah, I'm not coming in today, I'm going to this. Versus being in the spot that I was, where I was still obligated to be there at a certain time to a certain time. I was still working on somebody else's schedule. She couldn't see it that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, one thing I can credit my dad for, he probably, and it wasn't because he didn't have it, he didn't buy me everything I wanted. He provided everything I needed. And that's the representation that I want for my children. Like, I'm not gonna buy you the popcorn just because you want it, but I'm gonna buy you this sandwich meat and this bread because you need it to survive. And that's the approach that I take towards a lot of stuff. And she just couldn't understand that because, again, she got out of college and went right into the teaching. Most people who are teachers, you know, they get paid salary. You know, if you go to work or whether you're not, your pay doesn't really fluctuate.
Right.
The job that I was at, if I don't work 8 hours, my check suffers significantly.
Yeah.
If I don't get overtime, that check is very, very short. And she couldn't understand it because she had never experienced it. And then on top of the minute issues or the speculations of why you working so long, where you actually at work, the who's you with, all that type of stuff, on top of still having to provide, like, can cause a lot of tension.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, and like I said, everything's calculated, like you said with me. I'm doing everything for the future. When my daughter gets to the point where she can remember if dad was home or not, I want to be there. So.
Yeah. Well, circling back to like some of the insecurities, I've been a woman in the barbershop, you know, and my friends are of course men in the barbershop, and I have seen that, like, you know, you gone like very, very different hours than banker's hours for one. And then you have people who do not respect your time a lot of times, and they will text and they will call in inappropriate times. I mean, I'm not gonna say knowing that you're in a relationship, but maybe not caring, because their thoughts are, I want to look good, I want to have my hair cut, you know, me. You know, so there's definitely been times where I've gotten texts at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm looking at the phone like, I can't believe you even did this. Like, why would you do this? And if I were in a relationship, I can't imagine having the phone go off like that, and then having to deal and explain to someone who's not in the field that this is just our reality. This is what it is.
I would be lying to you if I said I didn't go through that phase, or we as a unit didn't go through that phase, because like you said, it would be times where I literally was going through a phase where I wanted to make barbering my bread and butter. And in doing that, I had to commit a lot of hours to the shop that I wouldn't normally do on a 9 to 5.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? So I mean, it's very unpredictable. And then explaining to her, because she grew up long hair, natural braids, never considered getting a haircut or a shave or anything of that nature. So when, you know, she still goes to my phone to this day, but you should see a message from somebody named Nikki. And Nikki's asking about a haircut. In her mind, why does Nikki need a haircut? She's a woman. Why does a woman need a haircut? Why is a woman going to a barbershop when there's salons and all this other stuff? And I'm trying to explain to her, it's like, and you know, because I'm an instructor, I'm mostly passive. I can do both. I can do men and women. I can cut and I can color. I can style and I can curl a little bit. Not great at it, but I can do both. And some of these women entrusted me with their hair because they are attached to it for whatever reason. And she couldn't see that for what it was. She thought it was something other than business. I said, this is a transaction. That lady's about to pay me $100 versus that dude that only trying to pay me $20.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that any day.
Yeah.
Because financially it makes sense to me. And it took a minute to get to that point. Until unfortunately, she was in a situation where her stylist canceled on her and she needed somebody to do her hair, and I stepped in and did it. She didn't pay me for
And you're still bitter.
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I understand
She
that.
gets a lot of free service.
Yeah, I bet. You know, that's
Unfair.
part of the package there. But yeah, it's definitely a no. Okay. It's definitely a career field where you have to be flexible and you have to be. I don't want to say always explaining yourself to a spouse that is not familiar with the field, but crazy things happen. Crazy things definitely happen. What do you feel that you have to take preventative measures since you do deal with men and women?
Yeah, and that was a hard lesson for me to learn because, I mean, she told me in the beginning, like, I would rather you, like, be 100% honest with me, and if you feel like it's gonna hurt my feelings, I would rather you tell it to me and hurt my feelings than me to find out on the back end and it hurts twice as much. Me being the person that I am growing up in the household that I did, I can't do that if I know physically it's gonna be harmful to you in some kind of way. Whether that's emotionally, mentally, whatever the case may be, I can't. Well, I couldn't bring myself to do that. And then over the years, it got to a point where, hell, she's gonna be mad anyway, so let me just say it. So it grew to that. It didn't start at that. But yeah, it does help to, like, yeah, without being, you know, too open about it, because at the end of the day, my opinion of it is, you know what I do. We've been together for 8 years, married for 6. You know I do men and women's hair. I don't feel like I should have to run off my whole appointment book before I leave the house. Like, I don't feel like that's necessary. For some people, it is. But it's like, you know what I do, you should trust me at the base of it that I'm going to do my job and I'm going to come home. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Like,
do you feel like you've ever been tried from some of your clients?
Yeah, but in my immaturity and me being like who I am with my intentions, I couldn't see it. And some people have a hard time believing that because I'm doing my job. I'm standing behind this chair 8 hours, and I'm thinking you trying to make light of the situation. You cracking jokes and you compliment me. And I'm accepting it, but I'm not looking at it for like, oh, this lady is really trying to get at me. But like I said, once it was presented to me in a way, then I learned to shut it down. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't respond to this person after this time. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you have to be able to shut it down.
Yeah, I've had like a few times where things have caught me off guard. One time, I'm assuming the client was drunk because he was texting late at night, and he was like, he said something to the effect of the way that I looked at him when I cut his hair.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a few years ago, but I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned because no, I really was. I was making sure that you look good so you can go catch whatever you're trying to catch.
Yeah.
Not in any form or fashion, you know, thinking, you know, I'm trying to do anything. My motives are, I like to cut hair.
Yeah.
I'm not in here, this career field, so that I can have like a roster of men at my disposal or anything like that. I love to cut hair. So, I mean, thankfully, nothing past that has ever really happened.
Oh yeah, nothing ever got outside of that realm of it, because I'm fortunate to be in a space where I work with a lot of older gentlemen that've been cutting hair for 50, 55 years. And like one of the first lessons that my owner, Mike Langford, he taught me, he was like, you don't want to mix business with pleasure. He was like, so if a woman come in here with her son or whatever, don't be giving out no free haircuts. Right. And like that was his lesson. He was like, and don't let no women try to talk you out of, you know, free haircuts. He's like, everybody has to pay. No matter what the deal is, whether they pay you $5, whether they pay you $50, everybody has to pay. It's a financial transaction. Like, you don't want to put yourself in a hole to where you like aesthetically what this person looked like, so you giving them free services. Exactly. It's gonna hurt you in the end. So I can accredit a lot of that to him, and he's brutally honest with me too. And he knows my wife, he knows my daughter, he knows my mom, my dad. So anything that she might think can go sideways in the barbershop, he not having it. Yeah, he not having it. He shut it down. So and that's another thing about spouses being being present in the workspace. So if you show up frequently, not all the time, but if you show up, like, everybody around knows what you got going on. Like, yeah, he's married, he got 2 kids. You don't want to go that direction. And people look out for one another in most workplaces. There's some foul places out there, though.
I mean, which that's excellent. That's definitely excellent.
The benefit of working with older people.
Yes. So if I were to go into a shop again, it would probably be an older environment, and then just really, really professional. I mean, there's a million barbershops out there, but I know me, and I know what I would feel comfortable with.
Right.
And so definitely be a thing. What do you think kind of caught you off guard with marriage?
Expectations. It was like different expectations came with the titles. So
You mean as in like dating, fiance, wife? Okay.
So it's like when we were in the courting phase, these things were acceptable. When we were in the dating phase, these things were acceptable. And that situation changed, like emotions and things changed, right? So when we were dating, we weren't literally staying together. So, and I tell my wife all the time, because in the first 2 years, she would ask me like every day, did you miss me? Did you miss me? And I would be like, no. And she's like, really? I said, yeah. You haven't given me the time and space to miss you, right? So if we're constantly communicating with each other, if we're always, in contact, I have no space to miss you. I know what you're doing. I know what you got on. I know what you ate. I can tell you your birthday. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been this close. We've been in this space, so it's like I know. So technically, I don't want to lie to you. No, I don't miss you. And like I said, as titles change, expectations change. So, like I said, I met her where she was at. I understood that she had to grow and she had places to go. I don't think she thought that of me because of where I was at. Technically, I had a good job. I had money. I was an entrepreneur. Starting out, I had ways to make my own money. I had a car. I was doing good for myself. I was briefly educated from college, even though I dropped out. So it was like she met me and saw me as this, right? And then when we got married, she expected everything to just fall into place, and that wasn't the case. So like what I'm saying is like the expectations is what changed, and it shouldn't. So if you meet somebody or somebody meets you, like you have to be able to accept that person for who they are, and don't expect for them to change because y'all are married. Don't expect them to change because of the title, or you're supposed to. It's like having kids. There's no manual. They don't send you away from the hospital with a book saying like step by step, this is what you got to do. It's the same thing with marriage. And you can't compare your marriage to somebody else's. It's not going to be identical.
Oh, that's good.
It's not going to be identical.
Yeah.
It's like at some point, I felt like in our relationship, she was comparing our marriage to my parents because her parents were divorced, so she had never seen it. So I can tell you a funny story. Like the first fight we had, it was like, I don't want to do this no more. I want to get a divorce. And I was like, Me experienced this before because I grew up in a household with married people. I went to my corner, left her where she was at. Hour and a half, she comes back. You know what? I overreacted. Let's talk about it. Cool. Let's talk about it. I've experienced it before because I woke up at 3:30 in the morning to my mom and dad having a full-fledged water fight. Like, but it's you go through those things as a couple, and you can be briefly and temporarily mad at somebody, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end all be all, right? And then also nowadays a big topic is like boundaries and non-negotiables and red flags, and all that stuff is cool, but at the end of the day, if you make a decision, you gotta own up to it. Like if you accepted that person for who they is, and when you met that person, they was a workaholic, they had these traits, they might have drank, smoked, or whatever the case may be, don't expect that person to drop all that stuff just because you said I do.
Interesting. Did you go in the door thinking divorce is off the table?
Yep. Because I wouldn't have made the commitment if divorce was still in my brain.
Wow.
Because I've always been a person like, you've seen it. I've been in a classroom with upwards of 13 people. I can switch from barber to cosmetology, and I'm still able to relate to people. I knew I could get along with almost anybody, right? The question was that person going to be able to get along with me and understand me for who I am? So once I said, will you marry me? I wasn't thinking about divorce. I really wasn't, because I had told I'm not gonna be the one to pull the plug.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's not like I said, I grew up with it. Through rain, sleet, snow, my parents were gonna go to bat for each other, gonna go to war.
So
I can call you ugly, but that person can't call you ugly.
Right, as it should
And
be.
that's the dynamic.
Yeah, as it should be. So what do you think about prenups then? And I ask that because I have 2 sons, and I would hope that they would get prenups. And my daughter, I think everybody should have a prenup, but I don't know if that means that I'm going through the door thinking there's a divorce on the way.
I mean, but realistically,
Like, can you separate the two?
I mean, realistically, if I wasn't following emotions at the time, I probably would have mentioned it. Because at the time when I did present it, like I said, I wasn't where I wanted to be financially. I wasn't thinking that I was going to be too far from where I was and where finances would have mattered. And like I said, I didn't go in with the end in mind. I didn't go in thinking that there would be a separation. So yeah, but if you have established yourself, if you've done things and you're in your career and you feel like that's how you, to me, that's a good way to test, like, is this a financial gain for you? Or are we in this because we love each other? If we love each other and we meant for each other, this prenup wouldn't be a problem. It's just it's an agreement, and it's almost like nowadays everybody approaches it as a business transaction. It's like, if we do happen to go sideways somewhere, you leave with what you came with, I leave with what I came with, and we're both good. So yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I wasn't thinking about it in the day and time that I proposed.
So me personally, I would definitely sign one, because I would never want to marry somebody that I couldn't visualize being kind to, even if we broke up.
Right.
So I would definitely, I wouldn't even make a commitment and not do it,
Yeah.
Preferably it would be somebody that I have enough respect for, and they have enough respect for me, that it wouldn't be a whole bunch of mess, afterwards or anything like that. But yeah, I remember being in my 20s and hearing the word and thinking that if someone signed it, it meant that you just didn't love me, and that you thought we were gonna be over with.
I think most people don't mention it because literally social status or financial status. So if you have somebody who's averaging maybe $65,000 a year, they're not thinking about a prenup. They're just like, for what? Like, you gonna take the couch when you leave? Like, why would we need a prenup? And most people don't look at it in that manner. For most people don't view things for what they really are, right? So married, we were technically legally married before we said I do and had any nuptials or any of that stuff, because you gotta go to the courthouse. It's a whole process, right? So people who've never been married or never been through the process don't understand it. So the wedding, the reception, all that is just a show.
Right.
Like, and that was another conversation that we had, because she had always grew up dreaming she was gonna have this wedding, she was gonna wear this dress, yada, 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 yada. Time came around, the time that we proposed, child's on the way, money wasn't lining up. I was like, we want to do this, which we ended up doing, went to the DeKalb County Courthouse and made it happen. This is what you wanted, we're married. Now, if you want to have a reception afterwards, we can do that. But the goal of it is, you wanted to be married to me, I wanted to be married to you, it happened. All that other stuff is lights. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a necessity. Now, in my opinion, like I said, the first 4.5 to 5 years were a little rough. We had ups and downs, and it didn't look like we was gonna make it to 6, 7, 8. But now, I like to celebrate achievement. So when we get to 10, yeah, we're gonna go back and have a vow renewal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna have a big reception, because we've both financially made it somewhere different from where we started, and we're not going into debt just to prove to everybody.
It's not a burden at that point, I think a lot of people start it off as a burden in the beginning, because it just balloons out of control, and it's just something really, really huge. But it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I would love to have either a destination wedding or a courthouse, and then a huge barbecue afterwards. Like, that's my dream.
Yeah, my goal was to get it done, first of all. Get over my nerves. I'm not gonna lie and say I wasn't nervous on the day that it actually happened. But to also commemorate it, but to be different and be unique in it. So like I said, we got married at the courthouse. We left the courthouse and we went to Piedmont Park. My cousin is a photographer, so he met us there. He took pictures, so we have moments to commemorate. We had matching outfits. It wasn't a suit and tie, it wasn't a dress. It was, we came as we were, and we did what we had to do.
Sounds incredible. What are your thoughts on you getting married at the age that you were at? Do you feel like it would have been better to have gotten married older or younger? Or do you think it was just right?
It's benefits of both. But what I mean by that is, fortunately, we haven't gotten divorced, but we've learned a lot in the process, right? So we've learned that we had to grow with each other. We've learned that times and situations change, and it can be for the better, it can be for the worse. But you always got to find the light in the dark, per se, right? If I would have waited, it probably would have went about the same way because I learned through experience, right? So most people who are on their like second or third marriage, they take a lot from the first and they approach it in knowing what they don't want, what they do want, what they will accept, what they won't accept, how they're gonna operate. And I feel like I learned a lot of that going through it. And then sticking it out is we have an understanding that no matter if I married you at 22 or 42, it probably would have been about the same. So that's my opinion on that one.
Okay, interesting. So you also, do you feel like, because hearing your story, it sounds like it was fairly easy for you. Like you just closed your eyes and then you just happened to meet somebody and then that was it. Whereas we got books, we got conferences, people are trying to connect, trying to, make this thing happen. And it just seems like it just fell in your lap.
I guess I didn't expound on the story, right? So growing up in the house with married parents, like I always knew that that's what I wanted at some point. And then being in a relationship with the person that you thought was going to be that person, and then that not working out, it kind of, I'm not going to say lowers your expectations, but it widens your gaze a little bit to understand it's like, you know what, I could work this out with this person. And I'm not going to say that it was easy, but after going through a 3-year, quote unquote, serious relationship, going through one that was horrible, and then meeting somebody that you can just chill with and kick it with, it's like, yeah, I can make this work. So yeah, it wasn't that, but like I said, I learned through experience. Going through 3 years, giving somebody your all, and then getting to the point where you think that y'all should be able to do that, and it just doesn't work out for whatever reason, because people had to grow, people had to experience things, and people had to move around just to see what was out there. It at that point, it's like, yeah, I know what I want. I'm at the point in my life where I'm ready to make this happen. I want a house, I want a wife, I want kids, I want cars. And if I keep waiting, it's probably never gonna happen. So I'm not gonna say it was easy. It's just like I said, I'm pretty planned out in most endeavors. My wife thinks I'm impulsive, but she doesn't know the days and hours that goes into me just making up my mind to do a certain thing. So,
do you feel like if you were a woman, it would have been that easy?
With my parents, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because it's all about how things are presented to you, you know? And you have to, you met my mom at the game nights or whatever, like how she is, that's how she is. And she raised me and my brother to have an understanding of what it is we want and what we don't want. So, and she never painted the fairy tale marriage deal.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it was like, and she was an example of it. Being young, having my brother relatively young, not being with the father of that child, like she understood that. So it's like, the world ain't what you see on TV. Marriage is not what is portrayed in the novels and the magazines and the movies. This is what it is. So whether I was male or female, it would have been the same thing.
But once again, that's another reason why I started this podcast, because I think reality needs to be out there on the forefront.
Yeah.
So people won't have these expectations that are like thoroughly unrealistic, and then they get into a good relationship, but they can't discern that it's a good relationship because they're comparing it to somebody else. But I mean, this is the reality of love. This right here. So just to tie everything up in a bow, what would you tell the younger you, or what would you tell a young man who is thinking about, you know, marriage and all those things?
Don't let anybody pressure you into doing things that you're not mentally and physically able to do yourself. Understand what it is that you're approaching and who you're talking to or who you're with at that time frame in your life. And understand that you can have boundaries, you can have goals, you can have things too. So if all of that doesn't align and you're not physically ready, then that's a sign for you not to do it. And like you have to get to a point to where you can ignore the outside noise and understand what it is that you want, what's beneficial for you, your partner, and whoever it is for that situation that you're in. So if I had it, if the cards aligned the way that they were supposed to when I proposed to my wife, it would have never happened. Because there were so many people on the outside telling me like, "Are you sure? Are you think you ready? You need to do this, and this." And on top of that, I had my own idea of what I thought I should be before I did it. But I guess to cap all that off, I wouldn't change the way I did it if I could. But definitely before you get married, do the talks, do the counseling. You know, have these conversations. Like surround yourself with more people who have been married. And when I say been married, I mean like 6+. Don't go to your homeboy, your homegirl who got married 2 months ago. They're not gonna tell you the truth. They're gonna lie to you. They're gonna give you that social media version of it, where they always happy. And me and my wife ain't took a couple pictures in like a year. And I can't tell you the last time we posted on social media together. So it's like, but that doesn't mean that we're not happy.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we're not, you know, living our life. We do stuff for us. We don't do it for everybody.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna get married, I would tell you, do it for you and your spouse. Don't do it for the world.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming this
Yeah,
evening.
you're very welcome.
Great interview. I appreciate you.
It's not a problem.